one of the things that we all intuitively know, but tends to be an aha moment when you actually hear it verbalized for the first time, is there are no loans for retirement. So take a walk with me in this beautiful town and let's talk about why the fact there's no loans for retirement can impact you and how you can weave that into your retirement planning. It's a beautiful town here today, beautiful day. All right, so, as I said, there are no loans for retirement, and, there's a lot of things that we want to purchase, or maybe our adult children want to purchase, and it's super easy to think, I want to help my kids with this, right? Maybe they want to go back and get an advanced degree and in college, and it would be, super helpful for them. It sure would be nice to graduate without any student debt, and I get that. I did get my MBA. I paid for it myself. It would have been nice if my parents had the means to do that, but you know what? Their retirement was close, and they made the right decision. It would have been wrong for them to spend the money to help me get through business school, because you know what? There were loans for that, and it all worked out fine. But for my parents, maybe they wouldn't have been able to retire when they retired. So I'm glad they didn't do that. Same thing with maybe helping adult kids with their down payment on their house. That's a beautiful gift if you can do it. But if things are tight, really think twice about that. And if you are going to do that, maybe one strategy, if you want to help out your kids, maybe one strategy is to provide them a loan as well. So, if you're 10 years away from retirement and they need help with the down payment, maybe that's a loan to them, and just make sure that you enforce it. And that could be awkward. Same thing with a car payments tends to be, unfortunately in the United States, believe it or not, for most people, that's their second largest expense. So sometimes parents help out with a car. I've seen people gift cars to their kids, brand new cars. And there's nothing wrong with that if you have more than enough funds to do that. But if you're 45 years old and you're working on paying off your house, right? I've talked before about the importance of shooting to be debt-free as early in your 50s as possible, including your mortgage. And, there's a lot of reasons for that. So I talked about if the retirement numbers are close and you think, gee, I'd like to be able to help my kids, but I need to make sure that I can retire. That's good thinking, right? The greatest gift that we can give our kids is for mom and dad to be financially independent in retirement, because otherwise, the kids have to think, oh, gee, we're going to have to support mom and dad. And if that's the case, that's the case. The U.S. has a culture where that's kind of abnormal, but I can tell you in much of the world, generations helping other generations is quite common. It's quite common for the kids to live at home until they get married, and maybe even after, to help them with the housing. But that's very unusual here in the U.S. And so in general, here in the U.S., as adults, as aging individuals, we want our kids to be able to be independent and not have to take care of us. So if the numbers are tight, I just encourage you to be careful with that and to be thoughtful and deliberate. It's your money. You do you. But I do encourage you to be careful with that. And not just if the retirement account is tight, but again, if it's the difference between you being debt-free in your 50s or your kids not having any student loans, if they're going back to school and getting more education, or maybe they're in the trades business and they want to get a specialty, then they're going to be able to take care of themselves and living within their means. That's a gift that we can all give our kids, is teaching them how to live within their means. And if we're helping out, sometimes it can delay their ability to do that, right? So just like, when we look at our retirement, people ask, well, how much money can I spend in retirement? And maybe they want a little bit more money in retirement. But sometimes it's worth the trade-off. If you could retire now and maybe live a different lifestyle than if you worked another 5 or 7 years, that might be a good trade-off. You've heard me talk on the channel. Unfortunately, if you're 60 years old, you only have 1,000 weeks left likely of healthy, active time. And being able to retire 10 years early, I'm sorry, 10 years would be nice. But even being able to retire 2 years early, those are likely going to be your healthiest and your most active years. And that increases the amount of time you have in retirement by 20% and probably doubles the amount of time that you have when you're fully healthy and fully active and do the biggest adventures that maybe you've been putting off for a while. So, that's my thought on retirement loans, which unfortunately there are none. I don't think in my lifetime I'll ever see that. I guess I should mention that there are some tools that people can use if they do find themselves in retirement and wish that there was a retirement loan. People do reverse mortgages. Unfortunately, that industry here in the U.S. Tends to lack reputable people offering that service. I don't know all the providers, but I have heard, negative stories of people doing reverse mortgages and then later regretting it. They have to maintain the house to a certain standard. It's often an asset that's somebody's most valuable asset, so you have to be careful and say, well, gee, what happens if I unexpectedly pass away sooner? Do I get to keep that asset? No, not you, but do you get to pass that on to whoever you want to pass that on to? Or does that go to the company with the reverse mortgage? Anytime you see a celebrity during the daytime doing a commercial and telling you how great something is, I think that's a warning sign. That's a warning sign for all of us. And frankly, I'm surprised that some of these celebrities, I know these are people that are past their prime, that they're willing to do that. And I think it speaks to what I talked about earlier, which is no matter how much you're making, it's important to live within your means and spend less than you make. So some of these celebrities we see on television, they were making big dollars in their prime. And the fact that, in my opinion, they're selling out in order to get this capital and to get the money for doing these commercials, I think that's an example of why it's so important that no matter how much money you're making, you live within your means, you save, because it gives you a lot of freedom. And I've shared before that, unfortunately, if you're in your 50s and you lose your job, boy, that can have, here in the U.S., it can be hard to get another job being paid what you were being paid before. So being able to be debt-free in your 50s, and I know that can be hard, and you just do the best that you can. But it gives you a lot of flexibility if, God forbid, that would happen to you, right? I mean, you could hunker down. There's a lot of things you could do. Your shelter, you still got some variable costs, taxes, heat, electricity, stuff like that. But it's a lot easier to survive a mini crisis like that if you don't have to worry about a mortgage payment if that were to happen. Plus, on top of that, it gives you a lot of flexibility, right? If you decided, I've always thought about living somewhere else, and this gives me the flexibility to do that. You could rent out your house and you have a source of income there. So again, just wrapping up with there are no loans for retirement. I think that's a good mantra for all of us to remember and to share with our kids too, so that they know, here's the game plan for mom and dad. And mom and dad are, they have to take care of their retirement. They have to take care of their needs. And most kids, as long as they know ahead of time and they can plan, for instance, with my parents, they worked hard for their money. Neither one had a college education, and they lived outside of Cleveland, Ohio. And, Cleveland, Ohio kind of had its day in the sun. And then they were particularly, 20 years ago when my parents, or closer to 25 or 30 years ago when my parents were my age, Cleveland was still coming out of kind of a rebuilding phase. And so there weren't a lot of great jobs available. So, I wanted my parents to spend their money. They worked hard for it, and it was their money. And don't worry about me. I'll be able to provide for myself. Fortunately, I was able to go to college, So, and I think a lot of kids feel that way as well. So anyways, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, hit the like button. It really does help the algorithm determine the types of people that can benefit from this channel. And also leave me a comment. I love reading the comments. They're very motivational to me. And until next time, I'm Azul, encouraging you to take full advantage of the youth of your senior years. Remember, you're only young once. Use this time wisely.